Hey guys, this is Chris from DSX Machina, and this is a little bit of a video essay, so let's get to it. Recently, I've noticed a resurgence of a genre I thought had faded, or at least had evolved to a state requiring redefinition. Educated readers no doubt know of the origins of the term cyberpunk and its popularity peaking in the late 80s and early 90s. Although the genre had been given its title in 1983, stories meeting the various criteria had emerged years, if not decades earlier, by writers unaware of the genre they were defining. At its core, cyberpunk was characterized by the collapse of government, the rise of dictatorial multinational corporations, the destruction of the natural environment, the viral-like spread of urban sprawls, and the seemingly uncontrolled advancement of technology, including its interdependency or lack of dependency to man. Stories falling into this genre didn't have to meet all these conditions, but common elements required a near futuristic time frame and a relatively dismal prognosis for the fate of mankind. Fanatical critics narrowed this genre to only apply to specific novels like Neuromancer and Snow Crash, as well as movies like Blade Runner and Hardware. However, as the genre gained in popularity, fans became obsessed with bloating it with stories that didn't actually fall into the category. This could be rationalized by claiming the genre was simply evolving to match the progress of society as we approached the date speculated in these stories. Cyberpunk waned in popularity in the late 1990s, finding a renaissance at the turn of the millennium as newer stories appeared not following the ironclad rules set down by the genre archetypes. One had to reach beyond American shores to find most of these, with the majority emerging from France and Japan. The padding of the genre by fanboys irked me considerably, not as much with cyberpunk, but with the term steampunk, a term which didn't appear until the late 80s, coined by a writer only attempting to ride the coattails of a then popular genre. What annoyed me wasn't the genre itself, I'm actually quite fond of it, but how it's been victimized by Philistines who continue to dump anything retro-futuristic into it. This even included retroactively redefining the story steampunk was based on, known then as Victorian speculative fiction, as steampunk. Steampunk refers to a specific look from a specific time frame under specific circumstances, so it troubles me when people lump any retro science fiction story into it. Other people agree, but instead of correcting this, they created new punks to accommodate the other stories because, God forbid, they should be able to hold their own without classification into a genre defined by someone else. So now we have diesel punk and atomic punk, each referencing a specific retro time frame the setting is trying to base itself from. My personal favorite is the latter, atomic punk, of which much of science fiction from the 50s and 60s originated, and later emulated by the underappreciated classic Sky Captain: The World of Tomorrow, a movie also often mistakenly labeled as steampunk. But I don't call it atomic punk either. I prefer 50s retro or Art Deco. I don't understand this fanatical desire to dump every form of fantastic or weird fiction into a punk moniker. A simple Google search will find other variations, space punk, weird punk. Anyway, why don't we just create a term omnipunk that covers them all? And yeah, by the way, I checked, it's already taken. I'm okay with someone using it as a variation of the music, but as a variation of literature, I think it needs to stop. It was okay when it was just cyberpunk, but it's gotten out of hand. There's stone punk, sandal punk, clock punk, biopunk. I really hate that one. And gothic punk, the latter making no literary sense. It's gotten so bad that even steampunk had to divide itself with terms like cattle punk and stitch punk being utilized. I mean, by this point, do these people even know what punk means? I digress. After a mild resurgence about 10 years ago, cyberpunk is starting to enjoy a second renaissance, a retro shout back to the progenitors of the genre. Despite most of these works being rendered anachronistic, given the advancement of our age, these original books and films are returning. I've been following Vincenzo Natali's progress adapting Neuromancer to the big screen, and just recently news came down that Neil Stevens' Snow Crash is in development. Both of these films follow up the second adaptation of We Can Remember It For You Wholesale, known to the literary challenge as Total Recall. And this only scratches the surface of Cyberpunk's comeback. We just had Cyberpunk 2070 out, and then we getting a resurgence of the original RPG based off of Mike Pondsmith, a system I was married to through high school. And even further, we also have the sequel, Blade Runner 2049, and another Judge Dredd movie and a new Judge Dredd TV series coming. Seeing these throwbacks finding their way back to the front line has me concerned, mostly from their anachronistic nature. None of these properties actually gauged how our future would look. right? We're past 2020 and we don't have flying cars or replicants, right? Most of these books couldn't properly estimate how fast the internet would arrive, how critical it would be of our daily operations, and how much sooner this would happen ahead of cybernetics and artificial intelligence, at least to the level of AI presented in these stories. Cybernetics has moved at a snail's pace, but the interconnectivity of the global population is very much a reality. The rise of multinationals was an obvious expectation, but their relationship with government as well as to their competitors was often vastly misrepresented. Yet I greet this resurgence of one of my favorite genres with open arms, giving me excuse to dust off and continue my neurospastic setting, a cyberpunk game mixing espionage and politics, which I don't know, you can call politipunk. I even had the opportunity to have a peripheral involvement with a new anthology of cyberpunk fiction put together by Jeff and John LaSalle called Foreshadows. The future may not be bright, but I've been enjoying the present well enough. Anyway, this has been Chris from Deus Ex Machina.